Now you know when. There you go. That's better. That's how it should be. Oh, there we go.
Teamwork.
Hey everyone, welcome to the last 20 minutes of SacAnime. I'm exhausted. How are you, man?
I just ran through the convention ground, so I'm like hyped.
It'll hit you after the demo. And that's my daughter right there. Do you see Miraculous right next to you? Miraculous, something, something. I think you guys kind of know who we are at this point. My name is Elias Toufexis.
Michael Antonakos.
What do you do, Mike?
I play Alexios, that guy.
Are you all pixely in real life too?
Yeah.
My name is Elias. I play Leonidas in Assassin's Creed, and I play Nikolaos.
My dad.
Yeah, the wolf. But we wanted to talk a little bit about we wanted to talk a little bit about motion capture in particular, because we've been talking about character stuff, and it's all well and good to talk about the characters and stuff like that in the game. But we wanted to do some specifics on what it's like to performance capture these things. And I think I should start with the big difference between Mocap and PCAP, or motion capture and performance capture. And it's one thing that a lot of people don't really get. First of all, in AAA games, a lot of times you don't voice them, you performance capture them. In the case of Assassin's Creed, Mike obviously had a lot of voice work because of the animation sections, but any cinematic you see, that's Mike's face, that's his body, that's his voice, all captured at the same time. And I did an hour of voice work for both my characters. Everything else we did on that stage in Toronto. So a lot of times people say, I loved your voice work in Assassin's Creed. And I'm like, I didn't do any voice work in Assassin's Creed. Or I did very minimal at least. And the big difference between motion capture and performance capture, as you'll see when we get the video running at the end of the panel, is motion capture is literally what the word means, is which you just capture your motion. So you're not capturing your voice. You very rarely, at Mocap, you don't capture your face at all.
Depends.
I mean, it's rare. Most of the time, it's just like you guys. One of my favorite games is The Last of Us. I'm sure you guys have played it. The Last of Us, they did Mocap coupled with voice work. So you had Troy doing in a Mocap suit. So they didn't have a camera on his face. They didn't have dots on his face. It was just the dots all over his body in the tight suit. And he did the scenes with cameras filming him and the cameras capturing him around the room. But then he went later and did his voice to match the scene. That's Mocap. Performance capture is that, but we also have these cameras on our faces that are hooked on these, bike helmets, I guess you could call them.
Yeah, they look like a motorcycle type helmet.
Yeah, they're getting smaller and smaller, which is very helpful. And they have a mic on the camera, on the helmet rather, and a camera that is about there. Right, I would say about like right there.
Yeah, it's like a distance.
Yeah.
It's like hit this.
And the camera's facing your face, and there are dots drawn all over you, and our favorite thing is there are lights on the camera shining directly into your eyes.
And in this particular game, we had 3 cameras on it, so
Yeah.
3 lights blinding your face.
Yeah, that's great. And what that captures is your facial performance, your body performance, and your vocal performance at the same time. So it's a full performance capture. It's literally what they call it. So that's the real difference between motion capture and performance capture. Personally, I love doing a full performance capture much more than trying to match a body movement later. Or the worst thing about it is occasionally they'll hire a different actor to do the mocap and the voice. So you have to match either your body to some disembodied voice that they already recorded, or vice versa, where you match your voice to some other person's body. And you're like, I would never do that. It drives me crazy.
I have one thing. I don't know if anyone played Mass Effect Andromeda, but there was when the game came out, there was a lot of complaints, but there was a lot of technical issues between the mouths and the performance and the voices. And what happened was, we did, myself included, the performance capture, but they didn't record technically they didn't use our vocal audio, even though we did it all. They did full performance capture with the cameras and everything, but then they used other actors
Did they really?
in LA.
Oh, that's
and I don't even know if they had them like match the actual video.
Which is
where the issue
came from.
Yeah, and so it was a huge technical issue after when the game came out, because they did it that way. It didn't use the actual voices of us doing it at the same time, because they were completely out of sync to when they recorded someone else in a booth doing it, and it caused a big issue. So that's why they do a lot of the motion capture without capturing the face. But they were trying to double up, and it ended up being a really complicated issue.
Yeah, and they do it very often, even sometimes just scheduling-wise. Like the story I've told in another panel, but I'll tell it again, is how I had booked the role in this game, in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I had booked the role of Leonidas, and I came in for about 2 weeks and performance captured all of the Leonidas scenes. And while I was there, my agent called me and he said, look, there's another character named Nikolaos, and they want you to play him as well. But that was misinformation, because what they were actually asking me was to play the body, and they were going to replace my voice later. But they didn't tell me that, so they did the full performance. I changed the tenor of my voice a bit. We did a full Nikolaos performance, and then what ended up happening was they liked what I was doing with Nikolaos, and he's a bigger character than Leonidas, and they said, well, we want to use you for Nikolaos now, we're going to replace your voice for Leonidas. And I was like, no, you can't do that, because of my thing, my pet peeve about using 2 different actors to do one character. And so I complained for about a week to Michael and to anyone else who would listen. And then I made my way up the chain, and I found the head of the creative head of this particular game. I found his email. I don't remember how I got it. And I shot him an email and I said, look, you can't do this because you're gonna ruin the performance that I already gave. Either redo Leonidas completely, which I knew they were gonna say no to because it's expensive, or keep me as the voice and the performance, because you're gonna have a disjointed performance. And then they decided to let me play both eventually. Jonathan made the decision, and he said, we're gonna allow you to play both characters. And I was so grateful, because that is so rare that a video game company would listen to an actor at all. We have many stories about that. But that they did, and they let me play those 2 characters as a testament to Jonathan and the people at Ubisoft. And I think it worked out great.
Oh, great. You're beautiful in opening that.
The Leonidas stuff is so good, and I'm so glad that they didn't have another actor do it. Not that the other actor wouldn't have been good or anything, but it would have been disjointed.
It wouldn't have been you.
It wouldn't have been me. But it would have been disjointed. It definitely would have been disjointed. And I find that with, like you said, Mass Effect and other games where they splice the other 2 actors into one character, something I really dislike. There is a call occasionally when you have to do it. Like, I don't know if any of you guys played Deus Ex. In Mankind Divided, there is a character who is 7 feet tall, and he's massive, and he's like a big, muscular guy. And the voice they cast was a guy who's like my height, like 5'10". And it was just my buddy James, but his voice is so deep like mine, so they wanted to use him for the voice, but they couldn't obviously stretch the Mocap data to have him that much bigger, so they hired this Russian wrestler to come in. And he's this massive dude. And
it's like Testicles in our game.
Yeah, it was like that. He's just massive, this massive guy. He's a terrible actor, but it didn't matter, because he was doing the body, and we were directing him into a very specific type of performance to match James's already done sound. So it worked. My preference is that they hired somebody who would actually act both parts, but it's occasionally you can't do it because the body size just doesn't match. There are voice actors with great voices who have never done any mocap at all, and they would just fall apart on the mocap stage because they don't know what to do.
A lot of people also get very uncomfortable or claustrophobic or insecure doing motion capture, because it's just a very different environment. It's not that it's harder, it's
technically harder.
Yes, it's technically harder. It's a different space. It's kind of like you're working in a blank room like this.
Yeah.
But you're in a tight suit, and some people just don't feel good, and they feel funny.
And you have that camera on your head. I always tell the story is you can grab your mic, because there's a scene where he grabs me and he's going to decide to throw me off a cliff or not, or to stab me or kill me or whatever. And we had these cameras on our heads like this. So we're looking close at each other, and this is exactly what's happening. We're going like this. We're going like this. Like, we're all intense. Doesn't matter. It's just, and we're going like this. It's just not, it's very not feasible to do it that way. So we did it once when our heads were tilted, remember?
Oh yeah. This is like kissing scenes or any scenes where you like have to get close. You go.
Okay, and now we're intense. It just wasn't working. So we did it once like that, and then we took off the helmets
Redo the scene.
and redid the scene. You also have, another thing that a lot of people don't understand is you also have cameras, regular cameras, filming you like a film.
They somewhat pre-prep the shots through the cameras, but they're not fixed to that, which is really neat about motion captures. Because there's cameras all around the room, at any point, if they're like, you know what, we don't like the shots that we use the cameras, we want to change it all up, or we want to bring in like a crane shot and move around, they can do anything. They can literally make these cameras placed anywhere, and they can move around the space at any time and come in for a close-up or come back out, and they can do it all in post, and it's really, really neat.
The coolest thing I saw once, it wasn't on Assassin's Creed, it was on Far Cry. I came into work, we did the day's work, and then David Footman, the director, stayed behind, and I was going to go home. I'm like, do you want to lift or something? He's like, no, it's fine. I'm looking at today's work. So I thought in my head he's looking at the regular camera footage of the work, but he wasn't. He had a camera, it wasn't really a camera, a monitor, and he would go on the stage, play back what we've done in the day, but was able to move the camera to nobody, but see what we've done. So he could, am I making myself clear about that? So he was able to watch in whatever angle, the stuff we'd already done as if we were on the stage there doing it. It was incredible. And the characters were already pre-rendered, so they were the actual characters, not just like a skeleton dot, which is oftentimes, every time I see a rookie actor come into a mocap, the first thing they do is they see their skeleton on the big screen. Not their literal skeleton, but the dots that they put all over your body, the markers. They see the skeleton on the screen, and they'll always look at it and they'll start doing this. They'll start like dancing, just to see like this little dancing skeleton. My favorite, I don't know if they had this with Alexios, did they have him pre-built, so when you saw him on the camera, it was him?
No, I didn't get to see that.
I did that with Adam Jensen, I would just see Jensen walking around.
It was really cool to see your character.
Yeah, it was really fun. But that's what's so fascinating about mocap, is there's so, and every time we go in, it's probably happening on Assassin's Creed. Every time we go in, there's some technological advancement that makes it even easier for us and better to capture data.
Yeah, every time I think we went into the Mocap studio, the dots on our face changed throughout the last year. Yeah, they add or make them bigger, they wanted the eyelids, and so it's a continual work in progress, the performance capture element, and it's neat to see the evolution, because when I started, 2002, 3, and it was with Lord of the Rings video game. We had these gummy dots they like glued onto your face.
Oh yeah, I remember them on your lips. How annoying they were. Yeah.
And you'd have to sit in a chair, and they had cameras all around you, and you'd have to do like and like do all these crazy facial movements. No joke. Like, okay, biggest smile, and like we do all. I'll explain after. We have to go through every day in the motion capture studio. Facial capture.
We'll explain the ROMs.
Yeah, the ROMs, yeah. But in that situation, we did like lines and everything, just sitting in this chair, and they'd have to put in the facial action after onto the character, because they didn't have the capabilities back then, as we do now, to have a head camera and stuff like that. So it's been really cool to see the evolution. Every time you come back in, they add something new. Soon we're not going to have any cameras, it'll just be a full capture.
They'll be able to capture the face from the 60 cameras that are around us. I can't wait for that day. It's going to be great. But so an interesting thing that people might not know is the first thing you do when you get on a mocap stage is you do what's called a ROM, which stands for range of motion. So you get on, first you do a body ROM. So you get, are we doing it?
I'll just explain what it does, and I'll like give it an
Okay,
example.
so basically you go T-pose, and you're like, all right, so bend your arms, bend like wrists, arms, this, arms up and down, round and round, legs round and round, and you do the legs, or look left, look right, look up, look down.
The whole thing. It's like full range of
You
motion.
do every possible range of motion.
Everything you can do with hips and
And then you do that every day, and then after lunch you have to do it again because the data has to be entered into the computer. And then you have to, after every take for your face, you have to do a facial ROM after every take. So it's like, all right, actors, up, down, up, down,
Up, down, left, right, open mouth, closed mouth.
Yeah.
And then at the end of lunch, or beginning of lunch, you have to do a facial full ROM where you have to go through like all the facial emotions.
Yeah, they make you go like,
Yeah, like angry, and you have to do sad, then happy.
It's like the worst overacting ever, but you have to do it. And then what was the sentence? Remember?
The hungry purple dinosaur sat in the big chair and ate with the zinky fox and the mad whale.
Like you memorized it. The hungry purple dinosaur sat in the big chair. And then when you just, by the time you're doing it 500 times, you're like just going nuts. The hungry purple dinosaur sat in the big chair. You're just trying to get, like...
Because they want to capture how your lips will move, so they have a database of your movements with the dots. So every day, because the dots are slightly different, they have to make sure that they're matching later when they go back. So it's a really crazy process that they go through.
It's so intricate, and these guys are so good at their job. Like I always say that I like my performance in the game, but I would say it's like 80% my performance and 20% their performance. It's not 100% me. Like they add things. They'll eliminate a fleeting glance, or they'll make me a little more furrowed than I was if they feel like it's necessary. But I never know exactly what they did, but I feel like I know they helped.
I was just watching our scene that they'll see at the end, and I noticed gestures, hand gestures. I was like, we didn't do those. So I noticed they added
hand gestures.
They added a slight hand gesture here.
I've seen that before. Yeah, they add hand gestures. So while we're setting this up, if anybody has any questions about this process, I mean, we could talk about it forever, but if anybody has any questions, come to the mic, or Atticus, you have a question? Yes? You want to go to the mic? No, okay, come up here. That's fine. This is my son, Atticus. He has a question. You have to talk into the mic.
Do the dots, do they like draw the things around you when you're doing the thing, the dots?
You've come to work to visit me. What do you think?
Well, the dots, like, in the camera, so you need the dots so that they can draw the picture in the camera?
Pretty much, yeah. They put the dots on your face so that they put the dots on your face so that the people and then the camera films your face, and then the camera gets all the dots and puts it into a computer, so the computer knows exactly where your face bends and moves, and every little nook and cranny on your face. So then when they put a drawing over it, that's what it looks like. You get it? All right. You want to sit down over here? No. You go back? Do you have a question, Isabel? Yeah. Okay, go ahead. No, we're good. No, we're working on that. So, does anybody who's over the age of 7 have a question?
I'm Andrew, big fan. I've actually seen the Mocap studio, and I know they use all sorts of different props that you use.
That's right, exactly.
So what's the weirdest prop that you had to use that turned out to be like a object that would be very important to the game?
Tell them about your prop handler for the blade.
So the spear of Leonidas is actually an orange with a black handle rubber spear that we have, and a wood handle on it, and it's got dots all over it. And because in the game it's attached to my back all the time, I can just grab it and pull it out. Well, it's really hard to do that, especially if you're capturing sound, because you would have Velcro attaching, and then you would pull it.
Yeah.
So it's in the middle of
That
the
already
scene.
happens when you touch each other.
Yeah.
Anyway. We'll get to that.
So you can't have it attached for those types of scenes. If you just do motion capture, it would be fine. But in most of the scenes, you couldn't do it. So I had to have, I love just calling him all the time. His name is Carl, because he literally, that was like, if we were about to start a scene and I was like, Carl! And yelling across the room, I need my Carl! And he would come, and he and I had it mapped out pretty well. It became a really fun thing that we did. And he would hold the spear behind my back, but he would have to wait, because I would do a scene and we'd be acting and moving around, and he'd have to time it out so that right at this very pivotal moment, Carl would be there with the spear in the back, at my back, and I'd just grab it and like start the fight scene. And
It's very funny, because if you're not wearing the suit with the dots and the markers on your body, the computer cameras don't pick you up.
oh yeah, you can be on the
So you can be literally hanging out in front of us and doing a scene, but the camera wouldn't pick you up. And there's a party going on there. And so it's so funny to see him getting really serious. And then you see this little guy running behind him, hold this thing, and he grabs it, and the little guy runs away.
It's like in the tennis
Yeah, it's like Kramer hitting the ball.
So that for me was one of my favorite aspects. And some days when Carl wasn't there, it became a really big challenge because he'd have to reteach someone to do it, and it's much harder.
They were never good.
He would fall and drop and like, dang.
Where's Carl?
Thank you.
Thanks, Will.
So I would like to know, like during one of these sessions, what like one of your guys' biggest mess ups?
Oh, we mess up all the time. I think I have footage of me messing up. Did you put that in the video? No.
Next time.
So it's an interesting thing is you usually can't screw up a line because there's so many cameras catching you at the same time, and they don't like in games to use 2 different takes very often.
No.
They would prefer to use 1 take. So if you screw up, very often they'll go, okay, let's do it again. Rather than if I screwed up and then, like on film, if I'm doing a scene with you and I'm supposed to say, jump to your right, and I say, jump to your left, I'll pause for a second, then I'll go, jump to your right. And then the editor later just won't use the first take, right? But in video games, a lot of times they won't do that. And there's another version of mocap, which is where the player controls the camera that you're mocapping, and you can't screw up at all. It could be a 50-page script. If the player's controlling the camera, there's no cuts. So if you screw up, you go all the way back to the beginning and do the whole thing again.
Do you know what that when we say player controls the camera?
Yeah, because in Assassin's Creed, there was no player-controlled camera. There was cinematics, and then you go back to gameplay. But there were some games, I remember in Splinter Cell, there was player-controlled cameras, and we were doing a scene, and if one of us screwed up, it's like, start all over again, because the camera can go anywhere, there's no cuts, not like a regular movie. So, I mean, I can't recall any specifics, but I guarantee you I screwed up, especially with lines, a lot of times. You have to know your lines, and you have to get it right, or you're gonna take everybody's valuable time. And mocap stages are expensive, so they don't like when you take up the time.
But it's good. Like in this game, which was really unique, Melisandre, Cassandra, and I would have to mimic each other's performances. And I think it was a really concerning issue at the beginning for Ubisoft because they had never done it before. They didn't know how it would turn out and how many takes it would take to match each other's performance timing. And to the most part, our blocking and our intention, to somewhat be matching so that when the other actor they had against wouldn't have to change variants too much. So thankfully, the one thing they really did very, very well was they cast her and I together. Chemistry-wise was amazing. So we both got along well, we both prepped scenes well, and from day one, we were all shocked by this because we all expected that we would have to do like 5, 10 takes before we matched each other pretty perfectly. I think throughout the entire year and a half, we're still the most takes we've done this for.
Yeah, you guys really came together.
Yeah, we do it's usually 2 takes, one and then a second, and we matched. And it really was a fascinating process because I think the whole team, everyone all expected this is going to take a while to make sure everything's exactly right. And that part was neat. So it's not necessarily a screw up, even though we've had a lot of funny ones. It's actually been a much better flow than we even anticipated. Yeah. Sorry for the funny stories.
Except when you have to make out with it.
Yeah, actually, when we made out, that was really hard. Yeah, we had to do a makeup scene for those who don't know, because we had to play other characters, and they were like, you guys want to do the makeup scene? We're like, no. We've been together working for a year and a half, and then they asked us to do that. We're like, we are way too comfortable as friends to do this now. And it was before every take, we were just literally laughing at each other. And then they're like, action, we do the scene and finish, and we're like, oh my God, and laugh. We literally had to go get a shot after work.
Yeah.
Let's forget about this forever.
Hi. Do they ever send you the finished video game footage, or do you have to play the game to see your finished work?
I've had footage sent to me. Have you ever had Ubisoft send you any footage? Ubisoft has sent me footage. I've asked directly from the animators, not from Assassin's Creed, but from other games.
From the game footage or behind the scenes footage?
No, the actual finished product.
No, I just watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, you can find it on YouTube at pretty good quality.
Yeah.
But I remember it was Twitter, I asked directly, can you send me both the behind the scenes and the footage? And they did. It took me 3 weeks, but they got around to it. Yeah, you can get it from If they're nice, if you find nice people, whoever's in charge of that. Yeah.
In the meantime, thanks to YouTube and all the people who just posted.
Yeah, really. In HD. What do you want?
I actually do want to say that.
Hang on, buddy. Say, I'm going to film this. All right, go.
I actually do want to sit at the seat.
You want to sit in the seat? So you've waited in line to say that you want to come sit in the seat? All right, cool. All right, good.
On a more serious note, as someone who's actually interested in into becoming someone who performs motion capture and
Cool.
capture, where would you recommend starting? Are there classes you can take?
Well, where do you live? You live here in Sacramento?
LA.
You live in LA. So I live in LA too. There's, I don't want to curse because I'll get you here, but there's a boatload of video game stuff there. I've been in LA for, all right, but you're good. I've been in LA for 11 months, 12 months, and I've done 9 video games. Because there's so many. Not all of them motion capture, some of it just voice. But there's so... All right, sit down.
We gotta do it, Nikolaos.
See. There's so much video games. So you're there, that's great. So the quickest way to tell you what to do is find classes, particularly classes in voice, because it starts with voice with video games. And learn what you need to learn. Whoever teaches the class, I guarantee you has connections to make demos, to make connections with casting directors, and to make connections with agents. Once you have all that, then you can start making a demo, sending out demos to agents. One agent will eventually pick you up, and that agent will send you out auditions. And then you'll have a year of putting yourself on tape and not getting anything, but then you're going to start getting stuff.
I've already got from in a little bit on the voiceover community. I'm more looking at how to transition from that to
So, mocap in video games, then if you're already kind of broken into the voiceover community, it'll bleed into it. There's no real way to go and say, I want to be into the mocap in video games, because some game companies do 3 games and only one of them has mocap. So you can't really, there's no real specifically performance capture community. But I mean, the same way I broke into it, I auditioned as a voice actor, and then eventually they're like, how tall are you? And the character, okay, you mocap the character. That was like 12 years ago. But now I audition for video games through my voice agent, not through my film agent. And that's what's going to happen with you. Once you do have a voice agent yet? Okay, so tell your voice agent you just want to get into motion capture. And they'll look out for, every picked audition they get is for an actual film for motion capture. And that's the only way you're going to get into it. Just keep cracking at it, because it's really hard to crack. But once you're in that circle, you get work. You get work all the time, once you're in that circle.
I have my own ads for what he says, for getting in, absolutely. I think for training aspects, I think you want to know some ideas. For myself and my experience, I found that mine was a little different. I got in through physical performance, and then my voice work came through. So I was exactly the opposite. And my recommendations, in the sense, if you want to get into learning how to do performance capture, and Elias might have a different opinion, I'm not sure, but for me, because I like physical transformation a lot, that's part of like what I really enjoy doing. So, and vocal transformation, but I would say getting into some dance, learn how to use your body, like really learn how to use your body.
Yeah, that's actually good advice, yeah.
And understand how to play with story with your physical self, like my arms, my body, my head, all these things can tell you things. And that is a really useful tool for motion capture, because if you're like if you're just sitting here and you're standing like we do in film and television, and I'm just talking to you like this, and if I was just looking at you, in motion capture, it looks like a dead pixel.
Yeah,
You
but
need
you
to
also can't go too far the other way.
You can't, it depends on the style, I guess. Some styles you can do a lot bigger, but sometimes you have to play monsters or creatures, and you have to do like stuff like that. And so you have to know how to play your body. And then with your voice, if you're continuing doing that training, is really helpful. So I would say some dance is great, any clowning, theater, anything that can get you in
Yeah,
front of
improv elements.
yeah, and performing outwards, because what's really unique about performance capture is, we were talking about this before, is the cameras are here, so you're acting like you're on film, but you're giving like there's an audience. So
Yeah, it's very tricky.
yes, because well, the cameras,
The camera on your face is really close. It's really tricky.
you never know where they're going to place the camera too. Sometimes they'll go to a wide shot. If you see a wide shot, you're standing there's not much to it. But if you're giving a little life to it, it gives some motion and feeling like there would be an audience.
Yeah, it's a learn as you go thing. You kind of start a feel for it. I'm sure like 2 weeks into your performance, you're like, I got it now. I got exactly how. It's a live as you go. It's a learn as you go. But I definitely agree with Mike. Like, get some body like movement going. Improv classes even are good because they do a lot of body work and things like that. Yeah, it's a really good idea. And you do. It's funny. A lot of people ask me, like, do you have to be in shape to do performance capture? And I'm like, it depends on the character, but it helps. Like,
It's more for your confidence.
yeah, that's true, because you gotta wear that tight suit. But it doesn't, like, I've played some mocap stuff where it's like, I spent the whole morning running back and forth on the mocap stage.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm in good shape, and I was almost throwing up by the end of it. Because it's just, they're just like, I don't care what you're doing, I'm worried about the data. So they're like, run. Okay, we need you to run again. Gun up this time. Okay, and then by the end, you're like, you're dying. So you do kind of have to be in a relatively good shape, depending on the character, I guess.
Yeah, if you're playing the lead sort of characters in games, you better expect to be running.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff you got to do. So there'll be days where it's just, they just want all the data that you get, like playing the character, running and jumping and doing all these things. And then just think of that as a couple days of just someone working their butt off.
Yeah, it really is exhausting.
Sweating. And they're like, oh, next day. They don't think about you dying.
Yeah, they don't realize that you're like, I'm exhausted, guys. Like, yeah. But that would be any advice. Or follow both of us on Twitter and feel free to ask us anything you want. Okay.
Well,
Hi, my name is David. You can see me.
yeah.
So I do have a question. So throughout the game's development, what challenges did you face portraying the characters?
I can tell you a quick one is Leonidas it was, how could we not be Gerard Butler? Because it's so famous. That movie is so famous. So the first thing we did was not do it in a Scottish accent. And then the second thing we did was, it was hard because the dialogue is almost the same too, because it's just, that's what Leonidas said, right? So it's hard it was very difficult to try to make it original. So what we did was we brought him, even though he does have some yelling stuff, we definitely brought him down, like I would have liked to have gone fishing with my son, that type of stuff. So we brought him lower and a little more introspective than the yelling, angry Leonidas, even though there are parts of it that we do that. That was challenging. For Nikolaos, it wasn't really, the only thing that was challenging was having to do everything twice, because I had to do it once with Michael and once with Mel. But other than that, I didn't really have any challenge. I'm sure you had.
I mean, some of you were here already, but my biggest challenge was when I started, I didn't know really much about the character. So I think my first motion capture shoot, I still didn't even know I was doing Assassin's Creed. When I started, all I knew was ancient Greece warrior. So I was like, okay.
Really?
So,
After you already started, you didn't know that it was Assassin's Creed?
for day one, I was doing my first smoke. I thought it was a test shoot, they said, and then I arrived and we're shooting. I was like, it's the scene in Athens, and the symposium scene. And that was my first scene. I was like, what's the game? So they keep it very secret, very hush-hush till the last minute. But I'd done a little bit of prep work just in case, and I'd watched some of the games before to see what it was like. And I was like, okay, if it's this game and it's Ancient Greek Warrior, and then it slowly shifted a bit over the year, and I still find Alexios is shifting now, even as I've seen the game come out, and because I never got to really see much about how it's progressed and how it looks in the game. But I wanted to create something neat, so I literally spent time before going, thankfully, in the woods with headphones in, figuring out, I had woods by my house, how he would walk, how he would sound, how he would, who he would be, and create like I used some animated characters. I'm going to create the voice first, and then I wanted to find like it was a bit of like Batman, Bruce Wayne kind of sound, mixed with Wolverine, and then in a Greek accent, so it's sort of like that, and stole a little of the Ezio kind of feel. But then it was from there. It was like, okay, how does he feel? What's his body going to move like? How is he going to present himself? Is he going to be? So those things, without knowing who he was a big challenge for me to just start and jump in. And thankfully it worked out really well. But it was really challenging not knowing what to begin with. And
It's good that they eventually told you what game it was. It was nice of them.
I was so grateful when that happened. And then we sat down after they hired, because they hadn't hired Melisande yet when we started working. They were still auditioning for other female character to play her for Cassandra. And that was still about a month after that. And then they finally, when they hired her, they brought us to go back and ran us through the whole storyline and everything.
Do you know that video game actors, one of the reasons we went on strike last year, I don't know if you guys have heard of that, we fixed it, but one of the reasons we went on strike was video game companies weren't telling us what games we were auditioning for and booking. Like I would do something, they wouldn't tell me what the game was, and then I would get the job, and they still wouldn't tell me what the game was until I got there. But what if I had, the big thing was, what if I accept a role and it's somebody I would never want to play in real life? And that was a big deal. We struck partially because of that, but they fixed it since. They still don't tell you for auditions, but they'll tell you now, like pretty much right away, once you book it. It's so weird, they're so secretive. When I auditioned for this game, much like you, I had sides of the lines you have to say. I had sides from The Walking Dead and The Godfather. And they said, do this, but in a Greek accent. And I did that. And I still had to sign an NDA. And I'm thinking, even if I wanted to tell somebody what this was about, I'd be like, it's a Greek Godfather as far as I know.
Or a zombie.
Or a zombie, a Greek zombie. So I had no idea. She's laughing, she had no idea what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's video game companies for you, right? Thanks, man.
Yeah,
Great question.
Hi, I was wondering, I know Assassin's Creed is also well known for not only history information, is also how the weapons are handled. I was wondering if you had to do any training for it, or
Sure.
any, like...
We had stuntmen there.
Oh man, they're so good.
They're so good.
Francis, who's one of the main stuntmen of like the lead assassins, I think he's been doing the assassin for a long time. Same stuntman, been doing the games, just so you know. So he's very consistent as the same guy who's doing all those fight scenes in all the games, and he's amazing. But it was really fortunate they allowed us to do the fights ourselves as well. They wanted to capture our performance of the fights. So we learned the fights.
That,
yeah,
especially.
And what makes games cool is they can take our body and our face and then, perfect. And they take our body and our face and they fuse it with the stuntman's body, and they're clean lines and they're really swift movements, and they keep our performance while adding their body to it. So it was really that I find the game's amazing that they can do that.
Yeah, so we did train, yes, but not like previous. I don't know if you did, but on the day they would dedicate hours to just working on the sword play, and we all did our own research for sure. For fighting, yeah.
Hi, I had two. What's that?
Dumb one first.
Dumb one first is always a good way.
I know with Capcom, sometimes they have these mocap scenes, but everyone is costume. I'm not sure if it's or not, but have you had any experience with that?
I'm sorry, I don't understand that. Say it again?
Sorry. So Capcom, I think for Resident Evil 5,
Yeah.
some of the games, they had mocap scenes, but everyone was in costume. I'm not sure.
There wouldn't have been mocap then.
No.
If everyone was in costume, it could have been. So I did a game called Need for Speed, Carbon. It was like my first video game. And you guys like it? Yeah. You guys remember Sal, the guy who I can repair anything? Yeah. That guy, that was me. Yeah. That was my first game. And we did that by, it was just my Joe Pesci impression, which is why I didn't know. You mother, but we did that live. Like they made us stand in front of a giant green screen and they filmed us in costume and took that footage and put it in the game. That could be what you're talking about, but that's not performance capture or motion capture. That is literally filming and then taking the footage and putting it into the game. Performance capture is taking the data and turning it into an animated character, like Andy Serkis type stuff. So that's the difference. So with Resident Evil, they probably did that.
And I was a bad zombie in Resident Evil, or no, sorry, Dead Rising. Is that the myself? Or is
Yeah,
it
Resident
Resident Evil? Oh, okay.
So what was your real question? I love that shirt, by the way. It's awesome.
Sorry.
It was very serious, because that was a dumb question.
It's a good dumb question.
You mentioned before, and Mocap actors have mentioned this as well, like just standing there, like it's different from regular acting where if you stand there, that's fine. No, you can Mocap and handle like move a little bit. How do you do that without being too cartoony?
It depends. It really does. It's funny, but it depends on the character and the performance. Like with Leonidas, I was so still until we fought, so it didn't really matter. I was still. I definitely focus on the breathing though, so it looks like
This
the character's breathing.
The breath actually adds a lot if you keep it.
See, here's a quick story. So my first game after Need for Speed, my first Ubisoft game was a game called Rainbow Six Vegas 2, where I played the bad guy, I played Gabe in that, the bad guy, and. The weirdest thing about that was I auditioned as a voice actor, and they had the animators do the motion capture. So I had to match an animator's motion capture of my of that character. And he was terrible, because everything he did was like this. Like, I'm watching this going, no human does that. Why are you doing that? But I had to, there was no choice. I couldn't say, like, let me do the mocap. This was like 2008, so they weren't even considering letting actors do it. My point was, you can go very far, you can go the opposite. But you can't, I don't know, like it's tricky because the stillness almost helps, but you just have to be breathing and you have to be real.
You have to know when to move to.
Yeah.
There's like, it's not just about movement, it's about telling a story with your body. And so it's the same as theater. You have to, there are times for stillness and there are times to move. But when you do it, I literally got notes on the motion capture stage, we need more movement. We need more movement. I'm like, because I'm already being present, being connected, and I want to act, and then all of a sudden, but we need more movement. So then you've got to find a way to keep it honest while doing thoughts and feeling, so you have to think a thought with your head, but then you think, and then you have to come back and like contemplate, and then you get aggressive and you come back. So you have to make these choices.
And see how we did it was right there, even right there, it was very subtle. It wasn't like, it's very subtle and it works, but it keeps the movement alive. So you got to figure out that, it's a dance you got to figure out. It is tricky though, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Is the footage ready? All right, so for the last
Hold on.
few minutes, what?
I want to give something to my father / grandfather that I took from him, and I deserve to give it to him back. Hey kids, can you bring up the spear? Oh, you brought it here. Come here, kids. This is for your family. I'm bringing it back to you.
Oh, no.
In honor, yeah. Because I know you didn't get one yet.
I didn't get one. Ubisoft didn't give me one. Thank you.
That's for your family to have.
Can you sign it? I'm serious, can you sign it? Thanks, man. Yeah. This is ours now. Thanks for giving me something my kids can stab themselves in the eye with. So, my thoughts for the bread?
Hopefully it works.
Yeah, let's hope it works this time.
Can we turn the lights down again? Is that possible?
Oh, say thank you.
Thank you.
This is your Odyssey. In a world where one man put balls on his face, and one woman did as well. Mocap. Hi, Mom. Hi. Take cover! I'll find you when I know it's safe! Let him go. No one on this island is allowed to say that word! Did he say Cyclops? Leave it hurt your feelings. Don't I did it. But you're so fat. I mean, big, strong. You really do only have one eye. The eye. Give it to me. Give it to me, and I won't kill Marcos for having you steal it. Give it to me. You want it? Go get it. See, the Athenian dog Pericles fears you. He cowers in his Parthenon, surrounded by playwrights and sophists. He dares not face you with honor on the battlefield. He knows you are too strong. He knows Athens' days in Margolis are numbered. And he knows Athens is next!
Not only play a Greek character, but to play a Spartan character was just a big honor in my life. I'm from a place called Mani, which is of Spartan heritage, and so it was time to honor my family.
I will make him pay for betraying Sparta.
I went back and watched a lot of the old Assassin's Creed games and which characters I liked and related with, and Ezio was one I really enjoyed, and I wanted to take little bits from what he brought to that character, then bring in the character that I thought Alexios would be, have branching dialogues, but sometimes it wouldn't go right to the next choice wheel. You'd have to keep going and then try and come back and pick up where you made a choice.
What arrangement would that be?
Thousands of hours of dialogue in a voice booth is really complicated.
Ella! Attack! Well, I guess I owe Marcos a little visit. Well, I guess I owe Marcos a little visit. Thank you, Phoebe.
I'll go tell Marcos you're coming.
Here, Butter. It's been a long time. Impossible. I saw you fall. I didn't fall. You fucking threw me to my death. I did what was required of me as a Spartan. I've made my peace with that. You need to as well. You are my father. You are supposed to protect me. You were reckless. You forced my hand. I was protecting my sister because you wouldn't. The Oracle decreed that Cassandra had to die. Her word is absolute. You know that. You can't cower behind your sense of duty anymore. Enough! I can't change the past, Alexios. I will live and die a Spartan. There's a large reward for the mercenary who can collect the wolf's head. Is that why you're here?
Assassin's Creed Odyssey, available now.
Thanks, guys.
Photo shoot. We are 319. Photo shoot in room 319. Attention, photo shoot in room 319.
With us, if you'd like to.
Oh, with us, sorry, with us. Oh, yeah.
What is happening?
I didn't hear what you said, buddy. What'd you say? Oh, we're done now. We're done. We have one. We're just discussing.
Discussing, 1 second.
Okay.
We're deciding on something.
Okay, so you.
Stand up.
You. No, no, you didn't ask the question, Chad.
Oh, no,
You just-
I did.
You, yeah.
Me?
I mean, the girl with the mocap, yes.
Oh,
You guys get, we signed a very cool little piece of art that we're giving away to 2 people. So you guys did it. There's no real reason, it really was.
And these are official numbered from Ubisoft prints for you guys. You're very welcome.